Oh my goodness. As of right now,
Welcome,
they can be wherever they want to be. So,
welcome to the Real on Parenting, where we don't take no mess, not even from flies in Texas.
right.
Listen, y'all, the behind the scenes be outrageous. I am Coach Kiana Shaw. This is my co-host.
Oh goodness. Therapist Danielle.
I'm telling y'all, we just some
Oh
days
man.
the things we laugh at, y'all would just be like, why? But it makes sense to us. Okay. So we are back
Right.
to part two. If you didn't see the episode from last week, part one, then yeah, you're gonna have to say the topic because I will butcher it again. But part
Right.
one was last week. We are coming back with part two just because there was so much information and so much to talk about. So I was gonna say child abandonment, but I know there was a bigger title than that.
That could be the ending emotion result. But now I'm trying to remember what I said in full. But however, it's the aspect of mama left me, daddy left me. And now here I am with feeling
You
abandoned.
just went with child
Uh,
abandonment.
right. I'm like, I'm gonna give you a rendition of whatever I said, even though I said it. So yes, child abandonment.
From the
So,
perspective of the child, though. Look, this is
yes.
water, I promise y'all.
So when parents are no longer together and or when one parent is no longer an active part of their child's life,
Yeah, so we talked about
results.
in the previous episode, like that initial shock and the denial that a child has. We talked
Mhm.
about the feelings that they might have around self-blame or even guilt. We
Right.
talked about them having anger and resentment. I thought that was a fly. Listen, that piece of lint. We talked about the kids having anger and resentment toward the actual custodial parent just
Right.
because of their anger and not being able to express themselves with
Yes.
the non-custodial. We talked about the fear of abandonment that they might have with the custodial parent, even though the
Mhm.
custodial parent is there. And then what's the last one? Behavior? Was it
Yeah,
behavioral?
those behavioral. Yeah. Hmm.
The behavioral changes that they
Behavior changes.
have from acting out to being withdrawn to developmental milestone regression, or is it regressions in developmental milestones? I think that's probably the
Either
proper.
way, same
Okay.
thing, but yes, you
Right,
get the
we'll
point.
take
Hmm.
it. And then we talked about the one of the most noticeable is the academic challenges, right? Their grades are
Right.
slipping and things like that.
Hmm.
And so we talked about those things. And so this episode, we just want to continue with this conversation because I think it's so important. We think it's so important. Our
Right.
children need to feel safe. They need to feel secure. They need to be safe.
Hmm.
They need to know that we have them. Um, and I mean, at some point, I think we need to talk about the attitudes of parents as it relates
Yeah.
to the abandonment and how our projections and things like that may be at play. But I know that when we were talking offline, you were talking about how a lot of kids have difficulty in forming attachment. So I think we should start there if that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So,
lead to the next one. So
uh,
yeah.
mhm. So there is that possibility. Everything that we're sharing is not definite, but there are strong possibilities of things that you may see in your children as they are trying to adjust.
Yes.
Um, so we talked about having being that fear of abandonment, and not wanting to leave the parent and or not wanting to, excuse me, or fearing that the person's going to leave them in general. And
Mhm.
person being in addition to the parent, just anyone not wanting to establish any type of bond with anyone else from that point on. But there's also the difficulty with forming attachments. And when I say attachment, relationships, it's just translations, right?
Right.
So with that, it comes down to trust, and that's another aspect as well. So it's being able to manage and regulate from that aspect that the feelings that your child or your children are experiencing and them having a hard time with it, and as their way of trying to protect their emotions,
Mhm.
they're struggling. They may be, what makes me think of is when your child is a toddler, or when you may observe, a toddler and they just run up to you and hug another kid. You're like, hold on. We just don't be giving hug, wait, you can have that, where it's kind of like that, um, inability, like you didn't read the social cues kind of thing. You just running up, you just making everybody your friend, or you pushing people away, figuratively and literally, whether that's with your words, whether that's with your behaviors. And there's many more examples of that, but there's difficulty in the ability to form and sustain the relationship, friendships, siblings, family members.
And I think people see those as givens, like, oh,
Mhm.
they have to have a relationship with their mom. They have to have a relationship with dad. But it really can be that struggle.
Yeah, yeah. Or you can even actually have where, like I said, everybody's situation is different, and the parent who's not active physically, maybe for reasons out of their control,
Mhm.
just lack of better words, but there could be that mom or that dad having calling in, calling the child, having trying to call, doing FaceTime, and the kid may be like, I'm good. No, 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 because that aspect of they're having a hard time managing those feelings. Now, I'll say this, it does not mean that just because your child is in, has shown that they're communicating how they're feeling, they let me know, or they share when they're good and when they're not good. And just because they're able to communicate those feelings does not equate to them being okay, and does not equate to them not necessarily having resentment towards the other parent. It's like that shield as their protective measure of they don't want to get hurt again.
Right.
So they have that barrier, they have that wall up. And then also within therapy, get your child into therapy when you notice certain things that is different and opposite, because sometimes behaviors are very subtle, and sometimes certain behaviors are accepted. Like when we spoke about that academic change, but where the kid has had an improvement in their grades. That's acceptable. What parent doesn't want their child to make good grades? But then you have to
Right.
remember the whole
But
picture.
that
Like,
unhealthy part of like diving in.
right. It's like that unrealistic expectation of themselves and the pressure that they put on themselves to make that A. You know what I mean? And to make those good grades. So remembering the whole picture. So with that, the social interactions with your child and other kids is difficult, or it always results in somebody getting hurt, or there's always some type of conflict. And like I said, I'm giving various examples. I can't, not going to be able to capture them all, but in hopes that it will put certain things in perspective as the parent, to
Right.
show like, okay, maybe my child is having a hard time, or what my child has been through has been a lot of emotions. So then let me just provide them with the proper support and outlet and resources for them to have that space to talk about their feelings. And if
Right.
they're doing okay given the situation, great, but at least you know that. You can't assume that for your child.
Absolutely. I think that sometimes, because I've heard the term, let me start here. Attachment-based therapy. Before I say what I was going to say, I want you to explain what that is, because I don't think that people understand that. And for me, it's a new term relatively. Like I've only heard it over the past year or so.
Well, there's therapy is therapy. However, a therapist can specialize in a specific type of therapy. So I want to say a lot of people have heard of DBT. A lot of people have heard of CBT, the cognitive
Right.
behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's many, many, many more, but those are kind of like the main ones that are is dealing with money. But anyways, but those are the main ones that a lot of people are kind of like have heard of.
Right.
So attachment-based therapy is a theoretical model, meaning it's a framework that the therapist is facilitating that therapy from.
Okay.
So it's a lot of I won't say a lot. As the therapist is working with the family unit, their perspective is from that model of attachment based. So it is a therapist kind of going back to day one, if you will, related to make that provide information, but to help make that connection in regards to, and this is my wording, when did the emotional wound start? What created the emotional wound? And with this emotional wound, how is this impacting the child's functioning now?
Right.
With the parent, or oh, go ahead, get a question.
So my thing would be, as parents, we have to be willing to accept that we are that emotional wound, that we are the
Yeah,
problem. And I get it, because sometimes we're like, I'm doing my best.
best,
What
right.
happens when your best is damaging? What
Mm,
happens when you got to go from I'm doing my best to I am learning how to do better?
right. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
There has to be a balance of that, because your best
yeah.
may suck. And like, no shade, it just is what it is.
Right. This is what I want to say. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Right. Just the facts of it all. Right. And there's that space of mom or daddy, you need to do better for the sake of your children. You may not want to go there, but you need to go there for the sake of your children. So
Yeah,
you can parent from a healed space.
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So let me ask you this, because I think that, let me rephrase. I know that when kids are dealing with abandonment issue, it impacts not just their difficulty in having attachments with people, but their difficulty in attaching with themselves, right?
Yeah.
That might show up as
Yeah.
self-esteem or something like that. Like,
Mhm.
as the therapist, resident therapist, because I'll say something and people will be like, girl. So what my question is, how do we help our children with building their confidence back
Right.
in
Right.
when the part of them that is supposed to be building them is absent?
Yeah. And granted, this is not like a do this answer. There's so many aspects. There's so many dynamics within that that impacts um the self-esteem of your children. So one, I would say, be mindful of what you're saying when you don't have your child's self-esteem in mind. You know, what you're referencing, the words you're using when you're addressing the other parent, because the other parent is part of your child. That's how they got here.
Yeah.
Um, Also, just your day-to-day communication. You know, when your child is trying to show you something, hold on. Okay, with that, if you're saying hold on, and that's more than likely, or it doesn't even have to be in that tone. Okay, it can be, give me a second. I'm doing
Right.
something right quick.
Right.
But you never circle back
Come
around to
back.
that. You
Yeah.
never come back. And if more times than not, that is your response and there's no follow through of coming back, that in itself is giving the message to your child, what you have to say or what you want to show me is not important. Are you specifically saying that? No, but your actions are showing that.
Yeah, and I've been guilty of that, right? And
Mhm.
Kayla has
Yes.
expressed how that has negatively impacted her. And I'm like, but I'm working. And if you're telling me about something, like she's interrupted about a TV show or something like that, and in my brain, it really is insignificant. But in her brain, she's
In that
trying to
moment.
share with me.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's like, I can't stop right here. Hold on, hang on. Let me,
Yeah.
and then when I come back, she'd be like, I forgot. And I know she ain't forgot. She feel
Is
deflated.
over it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, you know what? You couldn't hear me in that moment. I'm cool. And I
Yeah.
can't control that.
Right, right. So, like, what do you do with that, right? So there is our part of, as parents, more times than not, we always doing something, and it's never just one thing at that time. We're multitasking. So communicate. It will look something like, mommy's doing something right now, and I want to be able to focus on, I want to pay attention to what you're saying. And this is how I talk to my child. I want to make sure that you see my eyes the way that I see your eyes when you're sharing with me. So I have to finish these few things, but if mommy forgets, because we know we do, I do that a lot, come back to me. Come, remind me. Because I'm acknowledging that, one, I am not perfect. I'm not superhuman. You know what I mean? There's things that I know that, because I'm going on to the next thing, because the to-do list is forever going, right? So there is that part of communicating that to your child. So it's like, oh, mom, you say you were doing this before you finished, so now can I talk? And granted, you may have something else to do, but it's like, yes, you make the time, because that time may be anywhere from a minute to 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
It's a little blip in your day. And I don't even say blip, it's a short amount of time within your day where your child is asking or showing that they want your attention. So, how we respond, how we communicate to our children impacts how they view and feel about themselves.
And then also, like in my situation, I do a lot of business with friends. So it
Mhm.
may be a business call that she sees as social, right? And when I'm talking to you, I'm just like, hey girl, we give each other like a little bit of acknowledgement, but she didn't get
Right,
that
right,
benefit of the acknowledgement. You understand what I'm saying?
right,
So it's
right,
like, okay. But it took a minute for me to like process that, because I'm like, I'm talking to her about business. Well, no, you gave her social
right.
before you guys started the business. There was like 15
Mhm.
minutes of social. I was only looking for 3.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I
I'm
think
guilty of that as well.
as parents, like it's our responsibility to go,
Yes.
we are doing 100 things.
Mhm.
Let's carve out some time. Can we
Yeah.
talk about this? Like, it's challenging because sometimes we're in the throes. Like if she don't get up until after I've started work, I can't just stop. I got to be able to do X, Y,
Keep
and
on.
Z.
Yeah,
But
sure.
how does that impact her? And it's not
Yeah.
about going, hey, let me stop everything, because the world is not going to
Right.
orbit around her. And I don't think that her first interaction with disappointment should be out in the world. It needs to be at home with me and her dad, right?
Say how to
So that she
manage
can learn
that.
how to manage it, right?
Right, right,
Um,
right.
but I think that a lot of times as parents, we're not affirming our kids in a way, like you said, the tone matters. Hey, baby,
Mhm.
mommy is really busy right now. If you can give me
Yes.
20 minutes and come back and remind me in that 20 minutes, like that was big because I never do
Yes.
that. I never say come back in 20 minutes.
Yes,
Uh,
I've learned to say that because I saw what the impact it had on my child. So yeah, you
absolutely,
adjust accordingly.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, so yeah, I love that. I love that we can have this conversation, because I don't think we
Yeah.
realize just how much that
Yeah, so
impacts our
our
kids.
tone, what we do, even if it honestly has nothing to do with our children, but they take it personal. There you go. They take it personal. Something else that can be done is putting your child in activities where they naturally thrive. So if your child loves is a creative one, if your child loves reading, if your child is physical and likes to be outside, there's an activity, there's a thing for all of that.
Yeah.
Put them in something or have them be in some type of activity that reinforces, where they get reinforcement outside the home is what I'm getting at, where they're
Right.
getting positive reinforcement and acknowledgement outside of the home. And a lot of times I would see within that, like they're learning, right? They're learning the fundamentals, they're learning the skills, they're practicing it, they're putting it into action, and there's a learning curve. However, it allows them to be in a positive, structured setting
Mhm.
with responsible adults and other children. I'm assuming that of like mind, if you will, because we
Right.
all
Right.
there's always a chocolate chip or two, or a Skittle, whatever candy like, where they function differently, for lack of better words, but there is
Mhm.
that reinforcement, starburst, whatever. Anyways, but they're getting that reinforcement outside of the home as well.
Right.
Because as your children get older, so like when they're babies, as parents, we're typically like, we have play dates, and you're doing all the social things that are outside of the home.
Right.
It still is the same. So it should be adjusting and transitioning as your child gets older. So don't stop. Like school should not be your only thing that your children are doing.
Yeah.
What are the other activities? What's the other environment? I mean, it can even be singing, it can be so many things. Hone in on what does my child naturally enjoys? And let's do that. It can even be coloring, okay? Coloring, you can
Which is big in
print
my
that
house.
off for free, right? Or go to Five and Below, and every time I think Five Below, I'm like, partnership. But anyway, but hone in on what is your child's natural tact, like what do they enjoy doing, what do they do well in just naturally, or what have they shared with you that they wanted to do. They need to have an outlet and an environment that still kind of has that aspect of positive structure, learning structure, reinforcement. It
And if
needs to
I
be
could
out
just
of the
hurt a
home
couple of
setting.
people's feelings real quick,
Why?
without your phone. Do
Oh,
it
without your
without the
phone.
phones.
Yes,
Like
yes,
because when
yes.
when our kids say, "Okay, mommy took me to the activity," or "Daddy took me to the activity," but he spent all day on his phone. Like he didn't see
They
none of the
know and they be
baskets.
telling,
He
okay?
didn't see. Listen, okay, he
They
didn't
be
see.
telling
They
all of
got
it.
one basket. All he saw was, "Okay, I brought her here, and now I got other stuff to do." And we do that because a lot of us, especially entrepreneurs, we're working while we're
Working,
like these
yes,
activities are
right.
so we can work, right? Sometimes
We
it's
can have an hour and a half, right?
right. I got an
But
hour
let
and a
me
half.
say
I got to
this.
accomplish this, and we make everything a checklist, and it's difficult for the kids.
Yeah, and let me
And
say this, especially when, honestly, even as elementary age kids, if your kids are in activities, where they're there for an hour, hour and a half, ask your kid, do you feel okay or comfortable with mommy stays? Are you okay if you don't see mommy's face? I recently learned something new because I'm going off of how my mom parented me, right? Wherever I was, she was. Turns to the left, there she is, and I'm doing my little dance, right? You learn a little choreography. But I started to notice that when my daughter initially started playing volleyball, she was looking to her left and hey, giving her a shot. Mama right here. I see you. Good job. Giving all the praise, right? So it has transitioned to where I noticed like I'm thinking to myself, is she nervous because I'm in here? So I had to
mm,
ask my husband, like,
is it too much?
when you take her to practice, like, what do you do? Like, are you, because he be out and about. He ain't sitting nowhere no longer than 5 minutes, okay? So he was like, no, I let her do her thing, and I come in kind of like the last 10 minutes. I was like, okay, well, let me try that. So even though it brought up feelings for me, I should say, I won't say it rubbed me the wrong way. It was different from how my mom parented me and how I would parent her. But then, so I did it. And then, so kind of 10 minutes, and practice was over. And I was like, how was practice? It was actually really good. And I was like, mental note. I need to not be in there observing her because for whatever reason, it makes her nervous or she doesn't do as
Right.
well. So then I asked her, do you find it helpful when I stay or when I'm not there? She said, not there. Oh, okay, well, you were very confident in that response. Okay, I will deal with my own feelings my own way. No taken. Okay,
Right,
so
adult. Deal with your own feelings your own way. As
right,
the adult, you have to
right,
to process. Like,
exactly.
and I'm not. That's not shade to you. I'm saying
Yeah,
that
no, but
for
it's
adults in
but it's
general
not
because
like
we
why you didn't
forget
want to be
that.
there. Just like no, like okay, she communicated. I asked her, but she communicated that me being there is not helpful.
Now, on the flip side, please be aware, parents, that at some point they also gonna say you wasn't there, right? And
Right,
you
and
have
there's
to
that too.
remind
Right,
them
right.
of that. So every now and then, don't just go,
Yes,
"Oh, you said that you didn't want me there, and so I left," and then that's what it
right.
is for the next 10
What
years.
it is.
Okay.
Right, right. A check-in
Right.
is required. So the point of it all is that within all of this, there should be communication
Yes.
because things change.
And understand
Eh,
that the kids see it so differently than we see it. You
right,
guys
right.
remember Cheergate, right? Like when I was had my bullhorn and my pom poms and
We remember, okay? I don't think they
I
forgot that.
mean,
Yes.
look, go back to my Facebook page. The video is there. But Kayla was like, listen, lady,
Right.
I don't want you yelling.
Respectfully.
I don't now. I was like, your dad came to her dad came to the final game and he was yelling. He was like walking down to the court. I was like, how is it that I got in trouble with you about this, but daddy gets to do whatever he wants? And she was like, well, this is the only game he came to. So, and I was like, you started yelling at the first game I came to. You know what I mean? But how in her mind, it was totally,
Right.
mommy, you are loud. And I'm like, daddy didn't need a bullhorn. But I could hear him. Everybody else can hear him, right? Or my uncle got into an argument with the ref. I'm like, you ain't saying boo to them, but to me, right? And so I had to process that, like, dang, like I don't know how I feel. And to this day, I don't know how I feel about it. All right.
Well, at least you're aware, okay?
But I do not know how I feel.
But with that being said, your child's experience within that setting is
Yes.
pouring into their development of their self-esteem, how they perceive themselves, and giving your child what phase of pubescent, adolescent, preteen, teen, whichever phase that they are in for themselves,
Right.
they may ask you to be quiet, mommy, because you laugh.
Mhm.
My daughter said, I didn't even know that you can actually, yeah. Because I'm a firm believer, you're not about to have me come out of character. So it was a whole nother experience. But she was like, whose mom is that? That's my mama? She needed therapy. No, I'm just playing. But within that, it's like they're experiencing themselves outside of the family unit.
Yeah.
But that should be happening. And with that experience, that is a very formative, impactful aspect of how they perceive themselves and on their self-esteem. So it's not a one answer, there's many more that I didn't mention, but there's many aspects of what impacts or influences your child's self-esteem.
Yeah. And you don't get to be mad about it. What you do get to do is understand it and from the perspective of I'm mom and I want to know, but you don't get to be mad that they are expressing themselves or they're showing you that you're the one messing this up for me, right? Like you have a child saying, hey, you're causing me anxiety. And you might be like, I'm literally not doing anything. It's still their right to process their feelings. Remember, Miss Danielle said,
right. You can't tell
I
them
wrote it
what they
down.
feel.
Feelings aren't wrong. The actions can be wrong. I wrote it down because okay, so here's how you feel. Let me give you a perspective. Your actions are putting you in jeopardy. Your behavior is like you might not consider your attitude a behavior problem. However, you will be passed up for opportunities based on your attitude.
Yeah.
We got to correct some things, and that's okay. But do it in love and in the same tone that you would want it done for you.
Right.
Because
Yes.
again, our children being children is not the same as them not being human beings.
It is not. It is not. So no, I will say this. As parents, being aware of what you're feeling in that moment, if your child actually does communicate how they feel, I'm gonna put something out there as well. They're not going to say, Mom, Dad, sit down. I want to talk to you. I've been feeling sad and upset and frustrated lately because you guys have been giving me a whole lot to do and I'm having to go to school and do my chores. It's not going to look like that.
Right.
It's going to look like attitude. It's going to look like very short responses. It's going to look like less detail. It's going to look like you told them to do something and they said okay and they didn't do it. That's what it's going to look like. So keeping that in mind, remembering as the parent, as the mom, as the dad, how am I showing my child how to deal with difficult feelings? How am I showing my child how to communicate difficult feelings?
Yeah.
And if you are one who holds it in,
Responsibly.
if you are one who has an explosion, you hold it in for so long, and it's like out of nowhere, you're going off and clean the room and you get this up and da, 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 da. What do you expect your children to do? And
Yeah.
I mentioned holding in, but then we reference that as well. If you have a child that kind of just stays to themselves all the time, it's mirroring what you do because they're trying to figure out and learn this thing called feelings. What do you do with these feelings?
Right.
And I'm not speaking to or referencing where a parent is communicating their feelings and does show like mommy's frustrated right now. So because I'm gonna give myself some time because I don't want to yell at you. I don't want to say things that are hurtful. So I need a moment so that when I address your behavior, it matches. You know, and the kid is, don't get me wrong, kids will still be kids. I'm not speaking of that. I'm
Right.
speaking to those parents where it's for the parent, you're having trouble with your children's behavior or you're concerned, and that effective communication of your feelings, that modeling of how to deal with difficult situations is not happening because mommy and daddy's not doing it. Okay, so you cannot expect something of what we're sharing, of Coach Kiana and I are sharing from your child when when those things are not being shown or displayed at home.
Right, on a regular basis. Yeah. Not just once every now and then. Like
Right.
every
It's not like I've been a
day.
month and I've been
Right.
listening to Coach Kiana, you know, if there was that, yeah, but and good job and continue because it's only been a month.
Right. And we got to be able to have, like, especially when your kids are 15. There's 15 years of patterns and behavior. It won't be fixed in
Exactly.
1 month.
Right.
It won't. Like
Right.
but come on, parents, let's do this. Let's be mindful and give our kids the same amount of time that we expect to be given because we're telling them fix it and it has to be fixed today.
Right now. Right.
Right.
Not
Not
now, but right
now, but
now.
right.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
so how fair is that to them?
Right.
When we're going, oh, well, you just told me this and you got to give me a minute because I got to rewire my brain and then I got to reset the calendar and then I got to make sure I move all this stuff to the left because it was on the right all these years.
All right. Yeah.
Let's make the adjustments and let's
Right.
give the grace that we are expecting.
hmm And then also there's it just popped in my head, but as a parent, you can identify the feelings for your kids. Not saying you feel this, but going off their behaviors and their actions.
Right. It
It
seems
looks like exactly. It seems like or it looks like you're having a hard time right now. Are you sad? Are you upset? Are you confused? Like, put the feeling word to it. Like, all of us know mad and happy and sad, but you can be frustrated. You know, you can be worried. Putting the feeling word, various ones, and have them pick. Um, because typically we don't, a lot of people don't communicate that way. A lot of people don't communicate their feelings at all, let alone frustrated, let alone worried, let alone concerned, scared.
and when
I call it.
we do it to people that's not involved in the situation. We call our girlfriends instead of our husband. We call, you know what I'm saying? We tell
Ooh,
everybody instead of
ooh.
so
Throwing some toes on that one, but right.
I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, okay, go ahead, Danielle.
So, but with that being said,
I'm
you
not.
know, as the parent and as we're referencing and saying, like, you have to show your kids and you have to model for your kids and you have to create this space, that is part of what that would look like. It is acknowledging mommy or daddy sees that you're having a hard time right now. And even though it doesn't feel good, it's okay because it is sad. It's okay because even though it doesn't feel good, it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Like that's what validation looks like. Acknowledging their feelings and letting them know that what they're feeling is okay. And it is normal. Okay. You're not happy because you broke your foot. That man's hurt. You are in pain. And then you're
Facts.
limited of what you can do, or a broken finger. Now you can't play video games. That's very frustrating. Okay. So
Now
letting
you trying
them
to
know,
text like this.
right? Right. So letting them know that what they're feeling, that there's nothing wrong with them.
Mhm.
Granted, still prefacing the fact that it doesn't feel good, but it's nothing wrong with you, because with being humans, we feel all emotions, the ones that feel good and the ones that do not.
Yeah. Okay.
So keep
Um,
keeping that in mind.
I was thinking of something while you were talking, because how we respond to our children builds trust or breaks the trust, right?
Yeah, it
When
does.
they feel loved and they feel heard and they feel affirmed, it's building trust. When they feel ignored, when they feel your animosity, when they feel your irritation, it's breaking trust, right? And so when I think about how difficult it is for me as an adult to trust other people, because the last time I called on you, you said yes, and then you called me 2 minutes before and was like, "Oh, I can't do it."
Mhm.
That's breaking trust. The last time, I needed you to be there, you didn't even answer your phone. No fault of your own. You could have been at work. You could have been there for being there for somebody else, but it broke
Right.
trust.
Mhm. Mhm.
After the situation was over, after the mom died, after the brother died, whatever, like you were there during that week and then you fell off, that broke trust. So when I'm thinking about how I as an adult can have trust issues with people based on
Yeah.
scenarios, um, how much more difficult is it for a teenager to trust a parent who socially don't understand? I don't, like, let me just use me and my daughter. I don't understand this music you listening to. I
I
heard
don't
3
either.
words out the whole song, and all three of them seem woefully inappropriate to me. Um, as as an adult, I understand the connection to your phone. I don't understand why you have it as a child, because you just got this phone, right?
Yeah.
Forgetting the addiction, forgetting, the dopamines or whatever
Right. Yeah.
the
Dopamine.
pheromone. Okay, all
Yes.
right, not pheromones. That's totally different. But the dopamine that comes to your brain as you are dealing with your phone and all that. So
Right.
all of these things, when I don't get it, I'm breaking trust. So let's talk to us about, and I'm asking you as the therapist to talk to us about
Okay.
the trust issues that can develop, making it a lot more difficult for our children to rely on us and other people, right? Like,
Right.
the people,
Right.
remember I said, like, I got folks that's designated to talk to Kayla, like you
Certain things.
call,
Right.
call so and so.
Right.
But if she doesn't trust them, right? Because there's just no development and for her brain power, right? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly.
So when we're speaking about these different aspects and the negative impact that it can have on your child as them as a whole, you also have to remember that life is still happening, right? So your child is still growing, your child is still getting older. They are still in developmental phases of them getting older.
Mhm.
So, as for baby, toddler, elementary aged, by default, kind of like how our makeup is, we trust our parents
Yeah.
for the most part. We depend on them in such a way, we trust our parents, right? By default. Then when you hit kind of like that 10 and a half, 11, 12, there's still that level of trust and asking mom and dad questions and all those things, and maybe even still be sharing of themselves.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of like that 12, 13, 14. And you ask them how they doing, they say fine. That's when they've transitioned in regards to, I got my business and you got your
That's
business.
your business.
Right. So
That
when you
fine gets
have,
on my nerves.
so when you have where your child is going through the various age developmental phases as they should be on top of
Mhm.
feeling abandoned by a parent,
Right.
it adds an extra layer. So with the typical and usual, I won't say usual, the normal, I won't say normal, the baseline, what they're supposed to be doing, what they're supposed to be experiencing in
I love
regards
how
to,
you walk that
right,
through, right?
right. Because it's like, me and words. But when your child is in that developmental phase of, especially like puberty, pubescent, preteen, teenage,
Yeah.
that is normal to not want to go to your friends first. Let's put it that way. To go to your friends first because they have that trust with them.
Yeah.
The trust that your child had at elementary doesn't carry, it don't roll over. It doesn't roll over to preteen and it doesn't roll over to
Be nice
teenage.
though. It would be so nice though.
It'd be nice, but no, as a parent, you have to put that work in.
Hmm.
You have to invest time and make an effort because just because you birth them doesn't default mean that you guys have a great relationship and you guys have that bond. That takes work.
And can we also talk about like
Mhm.
you as the parent who stayed, right? Like and we often get dragged, when you're a single parent, for being the parent who stayed. People are like, oh, you're a single mom, you're a single dad, whatever. Um, being there, giving it your all, only counts to you. To the teenage brain,
Right.
it don't count.
Yes.
Because the
Right.
minute you say no, and we have to not be emotional about that. As emotional as it is,
Is
we
right.
have to stop
Mm-hmm.
being emotional about that because it does not change. They are
Right.
still going to feel how they feel.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. It sucks, but it doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right.
Yeah. I wanted to point that out because that
Yeah,
can
very
be such a
true.
harsh reality for so many of us. But we get stuck in the I've been there and I did all of this and I get it because you like let me roll call because I
Right.
need you to check it off. Look,
Right.
took you to school, check. Made you breakfast, check. Ran your PE clothes that you left after I told you to put them in the bag, check. Right? Took you to all the amusement parks, check. And it's kind of like, the gift that you bought, and then the child is playing with the wrapping paper, and you like,
Or the
$300.
water bottle, right? But within that, this is going to tug at some people, okay?
Yes,
But all those things are what you're supposed to do.
facts.
You don't get
So no
accolades,
credit. No credit.
nor is it your child's job to affirm
Mm.
what you're doing as a parent.
And doing it on behalf of the absent parent, right? Doing both parts.
Right, right.
Still, it's still just a part of parenting.
It is right,
And it sucks.
right,
I
right,
trust me when I say y'all, I know what that's like.
right.
I'm like, how is it that you don't have to do any of this? You get to do all the fun stuff.
You get to choose, right?
It don't
Or
change.
you have chosen. Now I don't have a
And
choice.
right. And I gotta just deal after
Mhm.
your choice. I get all that.
Right,
Still not my daughter's job to affirm me as a mom, to affirm me as a person. Go to
right,
your friends. Here go the line. I am your friend. You're not my friend.
mhm, mhm.
So you can tell me all of your things and I got it in the vault. It is
Yeah.
inappropriate for me to share my feelings. Even in some cases when they're 25, like they're not ready. They're not ready
It
to hear
may be.
how
It
daddy didn't love
depends.
them.
It
They
depends. I would say it depends. Because I was the one like,
don't.
hey, I'm 18 now. What's the deal? Tell me all of it. So I know
Yes.
how to. continue to proceed. So
my daughter want to know. She trying to get it. Like, I messed up and said, I'll tell you at 16. And honey,
no, don't give an age.
but I have already started saying, like, you know what, like when you're 18, like, try to push it back. And she like, use it. So
And you can always addendum, right?
right.
You can. So he's like, mommy
But I don't think
made a
that's
mix up. I messed
because
up.
her and her dad, she loves him. I
And
don't want
that's
to break
fine.
that. You know what I'm saying?
So, well, no. It was that we're about to have a moment. No,
But,
with your child,
wait,
if your
hold
child
on.
is 18,
Don't give me therapy. Don't.
right? So we're about to have a moment. Hold on. Pause on the abandonment issues. No, but in general, they generally speaking, if your child is 18 and they are asking you questions to seek information to understand, answer the question. If it brings up whatever feelings in you at that time, you need to go handle that.
I just remember, like, I think I was 21 or 22 when I got married, maybe 23, wherever. We don't go with 22, it's in the middle. And I remember like hearing things about my parents' relationships that really broke me for a couple of years. Like,
Okay.
what? You know
But
what I
did
mean?
you
So that's what
ask?
I'm saying.
But did you ask?
I asked the questions, I got the
Okay.
truth, and then I was not ready. So that's why I say
Okay.
sometimes even in their 20s, they're not ready.
Well,
Doesn't
to
mean
each his,
there,
I
but
would say to each his own, because there is that part where you may feel that you're ready and you get the truth, and it was like a real blow to the heart,
yeah.
right?
And that's
So
what it
then
was.
at your adult self at that time, you need to then, what we're saying now, you need to tend to your emotions. So whatever life experiences that's still impacting you now as an adult, go to therapy.
Right.
Go somewhere where you can talk about your feelings in a safe place.
That's
Where
not a friend.
without that's not a friend. Or you can speak without filter. But anyways, we totally digress. So getting back to the trust issues. So, but with that, so you have where your child is in whatever age developmental phase that they're in the default level of trust category that they're in because of that age, on top of the fact that they're abandoned.
Yes.
And so, kind of going back to what I mentioned before, encouraging them to share how they're feeling. So, it's not how you feel right now. When you've never provided that space or created or cultivated that space of sharing of feelings.
Yeah.
So if this is new, something new as far as communicating, you can even acknowledge this is different and it can be a little bit uncomfortable. But with what has happened with daddy not being here or with mommy not being here, there's a lot of there has been a lot of difficult situations, but there also has been some fun things too. There's times where I feel overwhelmed, but there's sometimes we have fun times together and I enjoy that. Have you ever felt it that way? You know what I mean? So it's all within how it's put out there. If you can't expect to ask your child a direct question related to how they feel when they don't have a reference point of communicating how you're feeling. So you have to keep that in mind. So as you continue to have conversations in the way that I explained, and it's an ongoing thing, not because, oh, daddy didn't come pick you up. I know you, honey, I know. No, that is what I call you stopping a band-aid on it.
Yeah.
It's not cultivating or creating a safe emotional space for any feelings at any time.
Yeah.
And our parents do that too. But I asked them, okay, so you check that off your list and here you go. Where is the consistency?
Mm-hmm. And they, if you ask them, they will show you where your inconsistency is. You gotta be willing to hear that out.
Right.
Yeah. It's not easy. Parenting is not easy under
It's not.
any circumstances.
It's not.
But we
And
got to
you,
deal with it. We got to do it
right,
every day.
right. Oh, that's also what I was going to say because you were speaking of in regards to when parents want to, rattle off all that they do.
Mhm.
And I tell many parents this. I acknowledge like it's not easy. It's not hard. Yes, it's going to tug at all the emotions. But
Yeah.
when your kid is doing things and saying things, don't take it personal. I'm going to say it again. Don't take it personal. Is it very easy to take it personal? Yes, because it's your child and they did X, Y, and Z or said whatever to you,
Yeah.
but don't take it personal because they are doing or communicating from an emotional space.
And they get to.
Yes.
You agree with
So
it or not?
once again, it's kind of like as that parent, you have the awareness and you have the option to say, I see you're having a hard time and I understand. I'm going to give you some time to be alone with your thoughts because you yelling is not okay. But
Yeah.
you being upset is very understandable. And
Yeah.
I want us to be able to talk in a way that we can both hear each other. Because with you yelling, I can't hear the words. I just hear the volume. And
Yeah.
but I want to be here for you. So that is what that looks like. Um, and your child still maybe we know our children,
Yep.
but you give them that time. If you have some kids who are, I would say just put a timer because as parents we either gonna get on phone with our friend, right, or we're gonna end up doing something else. We look up, it's nighttime, you know what I mean? So set a timer for yourself, to circle back to your child and check in. How are you doing?
Yeah.
And if they're like it is a do you feel that you want me to be in here with you? Or do you need more time alone?
Mm.
They may check, they may check, you got me saying check marks. They may say, I want to be left alone. Understandable. So a response to that is, okay, I get that. I respect that, but also understand that we are going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because even though how uncomfortable it is, even though how it's more so it's comfortable, or just not
I
even
can
wanting
write
to
it
talk
out.
about it. Yeah, and not just even just wanting to talk about it. This is the way that we learn how to deal with our feelings. This is how we learn how to communicate and talk about what we're feeling, even when it doesn't feel good. So, and then you give them their space, but you can also like, I'm gonna give you your space, but then at that point you designate a time. So tomorrow when I get home from work or this weekend, we may have a mom and son day. You designate and identify when and where and how. But just keep in mind as parent that okay, that needs to be something that's very private. It needs to be special because it also needs to be an environment where there's no distraction. So if you have other kids and they're rambunctious or they just loud in general, trying to check in and have that conversation at home is really not conducive to your child feeling comfortable with talking about anything. So that
Right.
may be a quick drive or having a mom and dad or mom and daughter date or whatever the case may be, but just being mindful of that aspect of what space that needs to be provided for them to be able to do this thing called talk about their feelings, that you can offer to them.
Yes. And then being mindful of how all of this impacts them, not just today, but tomorrow, next week, next year, in college, into their adult life.
So
Um,
yeah,
that
yeah.
because it absolutely can impact them. Like think about all the things that you're still struggling with from your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not have
Mm-hmm.
to have children have to do all of that as well. You know what I
Yes.
mean? I always say, look at a scar on your body, like the scar that you remember how you got it, right?
Mm-hmm.
depending on what it is, like if it's a burn because you put your hand on the stove, you can't feel the heat of the stove anymore, but you are much more watchful before you go to a stove. You will stop a kid, you dive into the kitchen, right? Like get away from the stove because you know the pain of that. And so you
Right.
can use that pain as wisdom in making sure
Mhm.
everyone is safe. Or you can stay away from the stove because you had this burn and it's just forever. Like when you look at that scar, you can actually still feel the heat from the oven. You understand what I'm saying?
This is
There,
why I
there,
don't iron, but yes.
are we talking about cooking?
Traumatized.
We talking about cooking, right?
Said he
You said
the
that's why
this
you don't iron.
burn
Yeah,
that
I have
hey,
an iron burn as well. Like, yeah, that was like I would never iron on the floor again. You best believe it.
that's funny.
But that emotional impact of the abandonment, if you are the non-custodial parent and you walked away, you are damaging a person forever. Like until they get the help, right? But let's just assume, right? People
Even with
go,
help.
oh, it's that happened 30 years ago. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If they still thinking about it and they still can go back to that place, you know, where daddy didn't pick me up or mommy didn't pick me up, and I was in the window looking for them. I was sitting at, you know, outside with my baseball and my glove, waiting on daddy to come throw with me, and he never came. You understand what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
these are the issues that we're facing.
Right, right.
And so we have to be mindful of how this is going to hurt them long term. And
Right.
I don't know, outside of therapy, like that's my solution, like, you know, support groups and things like that. But not just a one-time thing. Sometimes you're in therapy for a while on a certain issue. Now, I'm not a believer that you need to be in therapy for 6 years on the same subject. I don't believe that.
Not
But
on the same thing. No, no, no.
right.
Right.
But I do believe that you can be in therapy for years just because
Right.
every day new stuff is coming up and you're trying to handle your ish. Right.
Right.
Like,
Right. As
that's
you should. But right,
yeah.
right, right, right.
So I didn't know if you had another one.
No,
Like, you know,
no,
just dealing
no,
with
that's
like
it.
how to
Just
help
in the
folks.
in the
Yeah.
aspect of that, yes, doing these various things, and I'll say this, doing these various things that we've mentioned and talked about can be very, very helpful through your child or children's learning how to cope, right? And for you as an individual or as a parent, you may have your own stuff. So you may have done all that you can do or all that you know that you can do. So
Yeah.
providing, like I mentioned before, um, provide giving your child the additional support, therapy that they may find where they can have an outlet to learn how to talk about their feelings.
Okay.
Um, Also within the therapy, they're learning coping skills. So the therapy, yes, it is private. However, you can always ask the therapist what coping skills, what things are you guys talking about, or that my child's learning, or that you're encouraging to deal with these feelings when they don't feel good. And guess what? You practice them too. So it's not about use your coping skills. No, you have feelings too, and you're human as well. So how about you guys practice together?
Right. Right. So
So,
don't just have therapists give them coping skills and you aren't doing them.
right. It's
Like
like you go to
that's
therapy and your
practice.
therapist said you learn this skill. So you mad, do your coping skill. No, no. Because it's like, mama, you mad all the time. So what you doing? Right? Okay, now you want to get mad. So we are all
Okay.
human.
Well,
We all have
I think we
feelings.
have pissed everybody off today. Uh,
We all have feelings. And when you and with we all have feelings that go up and down all around throughout the day because the day happens. So the practice of coping skills is very important. And it's not to put it on your kids that you practice because no, no, no. Let's practice as a family. You can even have a younger sibling that's not even in there because they appear to be there doing okay. We all got feelings though, and we can all practice together.
yeah.
We can all take 5 minutes, put the timer on, and we can all color. We can all turn on something on YouTube and do some guided calm breathing. that can be 2 minutes. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to take up substantial amount of time. Or we can have quiet time with some calming music or our favorite song. And you get to do, you can read during this time. Mommy can be quiet because I like quiet. And sister can eat her snack. So it's not about only your child using these skills. It's like, okay, what is the family? How is the family? How are we all learning how to deal with these feelings that don't feel good? And
Yeah.
how is it being shown in our household? Not, oh, you went to therapy, so what'd your therapist say? No, no, no. Let's make it a part of our daily routine.
I love that. I love that. I think that yeah, we've covered it. It's not easy. We gotta take the time. We have to learn our kids. We gotta learn ourselves.
Right.
We have to take that time. And I think that so many of us have adopted ways to cope without ever implementing ways of healing. And so
Yeah, that's called defense mechanism, but that's therapy. But
maybe on another episode. But that's the end of this one. Thank you, Danielle. Like you see, I was like trying to interject, but I was like, let me give this to her because she
no
is the
problem.
professional. So I love it. I love it. I love you. I appreciate it. I'm so
Oh,
glad
me
we're on this
too.
journey together. Join us, continue to join us as we move into new episodes. If you have any questions, comments, ideas, let us know. Or if you want to be a guest on the show, because we are accepting opportunities for guests. Depends on what you talk about, because let's just be honest.
I'm correct. Okay.
Some of the
All
things
right.
that y'all
Just
have pitched have not been parent friendly, or at least our show friendly. So that being said, we'll catch you guys on another
oh, goodness.
episode of The Real On Parent. Take care. We'll see you later.